I'm John Fullerton, and I worked on Wall Street for nearly 20 years, most of it at JP Morgan. I left there in 2001 and really started a journey of discovery about the sustainability crisis that we face. So one of the books I've read that has really grabbed me was E.F. Schumacher's work. Small is Beautiful is the book that most of us are familiar with. I hadn't read it. I was too young to read it when it first came out. But I went back and read it after I left Wall Street and was so moved by it I actually got in my car and drove up to the Schumacher Society in the Berkshires and needed to meet the people and look around the library and see what Schumacher had read. And what's interesting is that the books in the Schumacher library are mostly spiritual books, not economics texts. And what his genius was really was to integrate spiritual truth into an economic framing. And while the work he did was nowhere near complete, it's very valuable to go back and read what he wrote now. And I got so passionate about it, I actually wrote a paper about the relevance of E.F. Schumacher in the 21st century, which, as these things do, found its way around on the internet and found its way to a man named Allan Savory, who lives half the year in Zimbabwe and half the year in the United States. And Allan Savory has spent the last 40 years of his life perfecting what he calls holistic management. And in fact, he just won the Buckminster Fuller Challenge for the work he's done in holistic management in Africa. And holistic management is essentially a decision-making framework applied to land management and the use of large animals, cattle, to mimic the way large animals used to operate on the grasslands. And if you think about the grasslands, first of all, most of us are not aware of the fact that they comprise rather over half of the land-based planet. And healthy grasslands build soil, and soil is the second largest depository of carbon after the oceans. So if we don't have healthy soils, we're not sequestering carbon in the soil the way the system was designed. And that's been happening now over the last probably 100 years, as we've essentially killed the large animals or herded them into pens, and the grass is left out in the open without the interaction of large herbivores. And what Allan Savory figured out is that by herding cattle in large herds and moving them systematically around a large ranch, he can mimic the natural course of large animals that used to herd to protect themselves against their predators. And by herding, they eat all the grass in one place, they defecate in one place, they stomp on the ground, which turns the soil and the nutrients back into the soil, and then they move on to another place that allows the grass to rest, which is how it then regenerates, which is how it grows deeper roots, and through growing deeper roots, it actually is the process through which soil is built. So by mimicking the way, for example, in the United States, the buffalo used to roam on the Great Plains, we can actually replicate the soil building process that used to occur naturally and no longer does. And in doing so, if done on large scale, this has the potential to sequester massive amounts of carbon, literally enough to buy decades of time to adjust our energy system off the fossil fuel-based system we have. So I'm passionate about this work that Allan has taken on. It needs to be scaled in a very big way, and one thing we're doing to help in that is we've started a for-profit company called Grasslands, where we're actually practicing holistic management as a business profitably so far in South Dakota and looking to expand throughout the northern Great Plains. Because the beauty of this is by managing animals this way, we actually build more grass, which means we can stock more cattle per acre, And unlike the conventional wisdom that believes that cattle are the root cause of land degradation, if they're managed this way, this holistic way, they actually not only don't destroy the land, but they actually improve the quality of the land. And you can see photographs of where holistic management was practiced on one side of a fence line and not on the other, and it's as dramatic as dirt on one side and lush green grass on the other. But in the process, the profitability of the ranch actually improves. So we have a way of a natural way to actually improve the ecosystem while also improving profitability of the ranching business. And as long as we acquire the land at not at sort of trophy ranch prices, but at its core productive value, we've got a business that's essentially true wealth creating. We're essentially creating wealth out of photosynthesis and building biodiversity, building soil, and sequestering carbon in the process. And this business actually there's an interesting article recently in Time magazine, the online version, which describes it. But it's a fascinating project, and we'll be looking to expand it over the next several years. Right now, we're managing 14,000 acres all in South Dakota, and we'll be looking to expand from that, in the next several years.